everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to work the edging on my new t-shirt design. This is a double knit edging that is it's a hemmed edge that is worked in double knitting. So I'm going to show you how to work that today. The yarn that I have used for this design and I'm using to show you this tutorial is from Queen City Yarn. This is a new base called Coleman. It is 65% silk, 35% linen. It's a DK weight and it's so nice to work with. It's going to be perfect for spring and summer tops. And that is what I've designed with it, is a new t-shirt design. So I've created just a little swatch on the main needles, which were a US size 6 4mm needle. Because the edging is a double knitted edging, I went down a full millimeter needle. So I'm actually using a 2.5 to work the edging. And the first step is to make each of these stitches into 2 stitches because we want a stockinette showing a stockinette edge on the front and the back. And I'm doing this in lieu of a hemmed edge where you knit double the length and then seam it down because I don't love seaming. So this is how I avoided that. So the first step is to knit each of your stitches into the front and back to create 2 stitches. So you'll just work across the row, knitting each stitch front and back, and this is using the smaller needle. This is a US 2.5 3mm needle that I'm using for the edging. So what I'm doing is I'm creating stitches for the back side of this edging, and so the purl stitches that I'm creating will be the knit stitches on the back side. So work all the way across. Knitting each stitch into the front, leaving it on the needle, knitting it into the back to create that second stitch. Once you have worked the entire row, this will be used on the front and back hem. So once you have worked the entire row, duplicating all of your stitches by knitting front and back, the first row will be a wrong side row. However, all of the rows for this edging are worked the same way for the right side and wrong side. So what you will do is you will, with the yarn in back, slip 1 stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the front in between the needles and slip the second stitch purlwise, yarn back, and then you will knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn back, knit 1, bring your yarn forward, slip 1 as if to purl, yarn back, knit 1, and you will do this all the way across the row. Each time you will be slipping a purl stitch. You will slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. This creates a double fabric, and at the end we will graft the front and back stitches together using a sewn tubular bind off. So when you come to the end of the row, with the last 2 stitches, you will knit, and then you actually do purl this final stitch because it slipped on the next row. So purl that stitch, turn your work. So we begin again, and it is worked the same way on both sides. So you will, with yarn and back, you will slip this stitch purlwise, yarn forward, slip purlwise, yarn back, and now you can actually see that the stitch you will actually knit and you're slipping the purl stitches. It looks a little different on that first row that we just did, but now all of the rows will look the same. So you will be with yarn and back, knit 1, yarn forward, slip that purl stitch, yarn back, knit 1, yarn forward, slip that purl stitch. So you'll continue in this manner all the way across the row to that final stitch. And as we're nearing the end of the row, we will knit that final knit stitch, and then rather than slipping this purl stitch, we will actually purl it and then turn the work. And you can see now that we have worked another row, this side looks the same as the other. You can actually see the knit stitches and the purl stitches. And so again, I'll work this another time so you can see how to work this row. So we begin by having the yarn in the back, slip this knit stitch, yarn forward, slip the purl stitch, and then we'll begin the regular patterning, which is to knit the knits, bring the yarn forward, slip the purl purlwise, yarn back, knit, bring forward, slip purlwise, yarn back, knit. And so you will continue to do this across the rows, front and back, until you have 4 columns or 4 knit stitches appearing on each side for this pattern. And then we will use a tubular sewn bind off to graft the stitches together. And that will give a completely seamless look and require no seaming. Well, unless you consider the sewn bind off. But I find the sewn bind off much easier to work than actually seaming a hem that you've knit twice as long and folded over. This technique also avoids or helps to avoid a tight seam that can cause some puckering. So this is a double knitting technique, but it's done in a single strand or a single color, but it's worked the same as double knitting. If you've done double knitting before, this will be very familiar to you. So again, we knit that last knit stitch and then bring yarn forward and purl the last purl stitch before turning. And you can see those stitches starting here. So we have 1 row of the double knit hem knit onto the front. So you can see where the seam is kind of. It does make a nice little hemmed seam. And this is what it looks like when completed. It's a really nice stretchy hem, and we bind it off with a tubular bind off, which rolls perfectly around that edge. And with this yarn, it just works up really nicely. That extra weight of this being a double thick hem really works out well for the drape of this fabric in this t-shirt that I've designed. And that is how you knit a double knit hem. If you have any questions on how to work this stitch, or if you need any clarification, you can leave a comment on this video, or you can send an email to kristen@queencityyarn.com or kristenclementdesigns@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much.